our speaker. Most of you who have been in this area for any time probably already know John. He's been here since 1998, is what I read. He's an award-winning journalist. He joined the Star in '98 as county editor and rose through the paper's editorial ranks, and in 2011 was named editor. In this role, he oversees the vision and direction of the paper's print and online divisions. And I want to say, anybody that has stayed in journalism through these last, especially 7 years, I think must be one of the most courageous and innovative people to make it happen and continue to keep the Ventura County Star very relevant for us and for our community. So, John, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Jean, and thanks to all of you. I'm honored to be your speaker at your inaugural meeting. I appreciate the opportunity. What I want to do is talk a little bit about what we're doing at the Star and about our industry, and hope we have some time at the end to answer a few of your questions. Most of you know already that the newspaper industry is going through what we like to term challenging times. And you probably know that because you read about it in a story written by a journalist. And the good news is that you read about it from a story written by a journalist. The bad news is you probably didn't read about it in a newspaper, because most of you aren't getting newspapers anymore. Most people aren't getting newspapers anymore. The Ventura County Star's circulation today is the smallest it has been since the Ventura County Star Free Press merged with the dailies in Thousand Oaks and Oxnard and Camarillo and Simi Valley 25 years ago. But we have more people reading our stories daily than we have ever had, ever. Last month, we had more than 6 million page views on our digital platforms. That came from 624,000 unique visitors, which is not bad when you think that Ventura County has a population of about 840,000 people. And nearly 70% of those came right here. So welcome to my world. We're generating more stories today than we have ever had in my career. And we're doing it with a staff that's half the size as when I started at the Ventura County Star. So it should come as no surprise to you that the management pamphlet that's sitting on my desk right now is one that says, "Leading Through Change." It's what we do. And it's one of the many reasons that I'm actually very happy and thrilled to be working with our publisher, Shauna Cannon. Shauna joined the Star this summer from Reading, and she really understands the mission of our organization. She understands the role that we play in the community, and she understands the unique relationship we have with all of our subscribers and all of our readers and all of our platforms. So I just want to take a moment and introduce you to our publisher, Shauna Cannon. You should know that Shauna and I actually worked together prior to this. We worked together in San Luis Obispo at the Telegram Tribune. She was, I think, must have been a high school intern or something like that. So clearly, we have readers out there. Our biggest challenge is revenue. As we adjust to our audience, to our readership audience, we're also having to adjust our revenue platforms, our revenue pictures. But I'm not really going to take a lot of time to talk about revenue. That's really Shauna's responsibility. And as in most news organizations, they really don't allow the editor to stick his hand in the money pot except to take it out. And I'm okay with that, so we're fine. Well, what I really want to do is talk about what we're doing to make changes in terms of adjusting to this readership that we have out there. One of the things that we have done that, frankly, our organization didn't do before, and many didn't do before, is we went and talked to readers. What a novel idea. But we spent the money, we've done some really great readership surveys, and the idea being is we want to find out what it is that they're reading, when they're reading it, and how they're reading it. And we're now using that data to help us form our decisions. We're also using the wonderful data that we get from all of our digital platforms. The metrics we get in right now, real time, are incredible. I mean, I can tell you at any time of the day how many people are on our app and on our website, what they're reading, how long they've been on, and that helps form a lot of the decisions we make. We have to be a little careful about that because sometimes the stories they're reading may not be the story that, Election Day, for instance, the number 3 story that was being read was the one about the guy who had $1,500 worth of food at, the Italian restaurant for only $100. So they really weren't going after the election story that day. So, you have to temper this a little bit with what the reality is. But it helps you understand that our audiences are very different, and helps you understand that what we need to do is learn how to serve those audiences. I know, for instance, that our print audience is an older audience, and it's an audience that really doesn't like change. One of the many ways I learned that about a year or so ago, I made the decision to save a little space, and so what I did is I took a couple of columns that we run every day, and I decided, well, I'll just alternate them, one every other day. So I took Hints from Heloise and our Annie's Mailbag, and I just alternated them. And I got a response from our readers. And it was brutal. I mean, it would sort of be like if you went to the Ventura County Fair and swapped out all the funnel cake stands for broccoli and carrot stands or something like that. It's not exactly what they were looking for. So we changed. So we went back. But I want to keep that audience for print. I don't want to abandon that audience. But I know that what they want is very different than what the users of our mobile app want. The key to keeping the mobile app users is one of immediacy and urgency. And we have a mantra in our newsroom: report, publish, repeat. Report, publish, repeat. Report, publish, repeat. And that's what we do every day. Gather the news, write it up quickly, publish it on one of our platforms, and then do it all over again. We're constantly publishing. The days of waiting for that 11 o'clock press are gone. I mean, that is absolute history. And we know that the audience that checks our mobile app and mobile website is very different than the audience that engages with us on Facebook. And that audience is very different than the audience that engages with us on Twitter. And that audience is very different than the audience that engages with us on Instagram. And that audience we know is different than the audience that connects to us on our tablet and on our website. And it's very different than our print audience. And so what we're learning to do, and learning each day to do, is how to serve those audiences and how to serve them the best way we possibly can. We're learning to tell stories in different ways. This past Tuesday, for instance, we covered the funeral of the deputy who was killed by the DUI driver. We sent 3 photographers and 2 reporters to cover that. And that was probably what we would have done 5 years ago and 10 years ago. And they did a marvelous job. We sent a 4th photographer who set up a camera in the back of the church, and we streamed it live on our website. 10 years ago, I wouldn't have known what that meant. But we did that for our audience. The same day was Election Day. So what we did, in addition to having all of our coverage geared to that wonderful print deadline, which I always push on election night, thank you, Shauna, as late as possible to still try and get it in your driveway early the next morning, is we also covered the election live from the time the polls opened. We had a reporter out blogging and taking photos while he was out all day long and posting it on our website. A reporter taking photos. Now there's a unique. But we're doing that. And in the evening, we had reporters go around to a number of the parties. This was kind of interesting because there was nothing to talk about because the clerk didn't quite get the results out. So it was a challenging evening. It was a little stressful in our newsroom. But we reported live. They're all checking their phones and not getting any information. So we knew that. We reported that. We had photos of people. We were doing it real time. They even had the editor actually doing a blog of reporting information. Who knew? But it was a different way of getting the information out to a different audience. And we still were able to gather that information, publish the newspaper. The minute we pushed the button, we then backed off and continued to publish digitally until we got the final results. Our research has told us that our audience, regardless of print or digital or age or whether they subscribe, still wants good journalism. They want us to do our job, which is peeling back the layers of government, peeling back the layers of business, and exploring the issues that only we can do. It's what we love to do. It's what we're going to continue to do. One of the things that I think you'll see from us is we will explore issues in a little more focused way than maybe we have in the past. We're going to look at stories on education, or stories on growth in Ventura County, or stories on water in a depth and in a focus and in a context that will help you understand them greater and help you make decisions. Now, what that will do is challenge us to do the rest of our journalism well. But we're not going to abandon it. We're not going to walk away from what makes the star the star. We're still going to cover high school sports. We're still going to cover city council meetings. We're still going to publish peanuts. We're still going to publish the crossword puzzle. We're still going to publish the local theater review. We're still going to publish the releases from our friends in the public relations community. We may not be publishing quite as many of them, because the reality is what we have to balance out every day is there's less space in print, but we have a lot of room in digital, but we have less time. And we have to focus on what we think serves our audience. And so that's what we're going to be doing going forward. We have a clientele that, frankly, there are this core of readers who really don't want us to change. Those print readers are very happy with what they have, and they don't want us to change. We have another group of people out there who frankly think that we're pretty irrelevant to their lives. And so what we have to do is nudge the first group along, and then we have to go out and identify that second group and try and convince them that what we have has value to them in their lives to help make decisions to be better citizens in our community. And we're going to continue to do that by practicing and preaching the bedrock values of journalism in our newsroom. When people come to us, they must understand that regardless of what the story is, regardless of the situation, regardless of where we publish, we still apply our standards to each piece of content that we publish. We engage in long ethical discussions in our newsroom on a regular basis, because we publish based on accuracy, on fairness, on what is right, not on terms of advocacy, which is what you see in a lot of other internet publications. And it's this set of values, we hope, the trust that people have in us being committed to those values and in practicing those values, that we think will continue to sustain us going forward. So I want to thank you for the time. I want to thank you for what you do for your community, and you do for us. We have a wonderful relationship. It's a relationship that we hope will continue to grow, and it's a relationship that we have a role in serving you and in serving your bosses, and we understand that. So with that, I want to thank you again for the time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Yeah.
Hi, John. What do you see as the administrative coming in the next 5 years?
Well, 5 years ago I would have said print will never die. And I think that what you'll see coming forward is that the model of print sometime in the next 3 to 5 years will begin to change. We have it's a very good understanding that the readership that pick up the paper in the morning is an older readership. But it's there, and it's a strong audience. So we're not going to walk away from it. But we have to find it, but it's hugely expensive. It's the thing that costs us the most money. We don't want to stop doing it, and I don't think we will, frankly. But I think that you'll see, particularly on a larger scale, larger markets find different ways, maybe fewer days of newspapers. And I think that you will see a continuation of a focus of print on content that is more suitable to a long read. I mean, that daily what's going on in my community will be the stuff that probably gets left behind in terms of for the digital. So I think that you'll see from a print standpoint continuing changes in what that product looks like. But I think the smaller the market, frankly, the more sustainable print really is. But I wish I could predict what the digital is going to be like. I could do pretty well if I could predict that one. But it's fascinating to me to see all ages engaged in information. And I think that that's the real encouraging thing for me is that, my son who doesn't read a newspaper, even though, you know, his father is an editor. Doesn't read a newspaper, but is very attuned to what's going on in the world. He knows. He's engaged in those conversations. He gathers that information, and he gathers it being very selective about where he gets it. So there is that good filter that they have, and so I'm very encouraged by that. What I don't know is whether those of us who are doing it from what's considered the mass media will be able to find ways to sustain us from a financial standpoint. You know, we're a business. We have to make a profit. This is not, you know, this is not for free. And so this is why we've gone to some of the models we've gone to. So you'll see more changes that way. But I'm very encouraged about what I see. I'm excited about, you know, a lot of the opportunities to get information in people's hands in different ways. So we're having fun. Parts of the building aren't having as much fun as we are, but that's okay. Yes.
John, I'm curious, does the Star have an editorial policy that requires its leisure staff to be active on individual social channels? And the reason why I'm asking is because I see some Star reporters that are very active, like Lacey McKinnon. I'm shooting with her all the time. And so, hey, you got this clip, or even Sandra Solis clips, and so on and so forth. But then I see other reporters who are not as active, and given the Star's increased digital presence and larger digital audience on both online and social and mobile, what is your stand?
We don't, there's a requirement that everyone contribute content to our Star digital platforms, the website, the mobile applications, our Facebook page, the Star Twitter account. I mean, there is, yes, you have to contribute whatever you're doing to that. It's the individual accounts that what we say is we encourage you to do it, because what we encourage you to do is what Lisa does, which is establish a brand based on a personality. There's a connection there that frankly we tended to shy away from in our business for a long, long time. And it took us a long time to find the value there. That you want to connect with someone who's an individual, know that person whether you've met them or not. And what we're finding is that the reporters across the spectrum who are making that connection are getting deeper sources, they're getting better stories. Gretchen Winter does it in the city of Oxnard. I mean, if you follow Gretchen's tweets from a council meeting in the city of Oxnard, of course, Oxnard city council meetings have their own. But she does it very well. And it's very engaging. And so she has this wonderful audience. And so what we're doing is we're basically showing the rest of the staff of, look at this. And so we're encouraging them to do that. We haven't gotten to the point of saying that it's mandatory.
In the end, though, it does benefit you
Oh.
along, because it certainly widens
It's
the
huge.
distribution and the reach of Star-related.
Absolutely. It's huge. I mean, one of the things,
Posting information that doesn't necessarily make it online.
absolutely right. And what we're doing now, in fact, we just went through a reorganization, and there's a small group of people, and Lisa's one of them, that we're creating this sort of digital team to say, we've got, you know, Lisa, you do very well on social media, but we don't have an audience for her on our website. So how do we find that audience, create that audience with that same content? Our sports staff does wonderful on Twitter. I mean, they've got, on a Friday night, they will have almost 200 tweets of sending stuff out. And they get this great audience. So how do they translate that to a sports conversation at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday morning on our website? So what we're trying to do is learn how to do this without, you know, basically taking the same content, finding that audience, and directing that content to those audiences. Yes?
The ad had been the oldest and letters to the editor were the two most read in the content. Is that still the same content that you
That is, obits are still very high, letters to the editor are not. I mean, I don't have, let me think if I've got really good print reader numbers, and I don't off the top of my head. Letters are pretty strong, but it's fairly narrow. Those who read letters to the editor are passionate about it, they contribute, they read them, they're engaged. One of the things that we're going to do going forward is to try and see if we can take that conversation, that audience to a greater digital space. And we're going to play with that a little bit and see what that looks like. Obits still are very high, and the people who, you know, are very engaged on a regular basis in terms of that. So I think they're strong, and I think that they're pieces that we want to retain because we're doing them and nobody else is. And it's the value that one of the values the newspaper has. Nobody else prints obits. TV doesn't do obits. You know, radio doesn't do letters to the editor. And so how can we then take that and take that audience we know exists and make it a little bit bigger audience? And so that's really some of the things that we're looking at doing.
And does the digital consumer also?
On obits, yes. On letters, probably about the same level that they do in print. You still have this somewhat narrow audience, and part of that is our fault, frankly, because we're still presenting letters digital just like we're doing in print. And so what we need to do is sort of extract those conversations that people are having in letters, the editor, and highlight them differently or expose a wider audience. Because if you don't think to go to letters, the editor, you don't do it. And so we want to take that and say there's some great things going on, some great ideas going on, and expose them on a broader scale and see if we can engage that in a different way. Yes? Yes. Well, it's interesting. We embraced it's user-generated content, and we embraced that 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and thought this is wonderful, and I can sleep in because the community will cover the news. Well, it hasn't quite happened that way, and what's interesting is that, and we continue to make it available. We have different channels on our website that people can contribute different ways. They do. We haven't really promoted it as well as maybe we should have. But at the same time, this great model that a lot of people in the industry thought was going to sort of save us, that you don't have to cover the city council meeting anymore because everybody at the city council meeting will cover it for you, simply did not happen. And it wasn't just here, it was across the space in the US that, frankly, people wanted us to do our job and still do that. Now, they'll comment on it, they'll respond to it, they'll react to it, but that core coverage of it, they still want somebody they trust to provide that to them. So I'm not sure that it's the salvation that we sort of hope for, but what we have to do is find ways to help supplement what we're doing with what the community is doing. And I think you begin to see more and more of that, particularly in social media space. Twitter is incredible in that regard. Facebook creates conversations, and so we're beginning. Anytime a big story comes up, we're always searching Twitter to see who's out there, who's talking about it, and reaching out to those people. Are you there? Take a picture, send it to us. So we're using it, but it's on a different scale than what we sort of thought about initially.
Probably one more question because of time. Anybody want to ask the last question?
Yes.
How do you approach the Friday news stuff? So there's the media outlets that leave all of their more controversial stories. So Friday night, when maybe people aren't paying attention as much, and they just kind of look over it.
He sighs. So I spent 5 years in Washington, D.C., and which is the epitome of that happening. Because it happens on Friday, or it happens at 4 o'clock on Christmas Eve, I found out, or 3 Christmas Eves in a row, right? Yes. My wife will attest to that, as I stayed late on Christmas Eve covering stories that, that broke. So the advantage we have now is that we have an audience at 5 o'clock on Friday. And we have an audience at 7 o'clock on Friday. We have an audience at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning. And we never really had that audience. The bigger issue is our recognition of it, that frankly what we have to do is staff for it. Because one of the things that we didn't do was staff for it. We all left at 5 o'clock on Friday because there were more fun things to do than work. And so we have to find ways to understand that that still exists. But I think that you will see and are seeing less of that because the recognition that it's much harder to hide news even by that Friday 5 o'clock, because on the way home, while you're driving, you're doing this. We all are. So it'll pop up. So it's not that you can bury it because it doesn't show up again until Monday morning. And I think that you'll begin to see less of that occurring, although there are some people who still will use it, as I say. So thank you very much for the questions, and thank you for the time.